think for a moment about the apps you use, to manage your money. The speed you can open a new account online these days.
Pretty amazing, isn't it?
It really is. And in today's financial world, with all this fintech and digital banking, there's actually a huge amount going on behind the scenes to keep those interactions secure. Ever wonder what those safeguards really are?
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of due diligence and know your customer, or KYC.
Right.
And these aren't just, corporate buzzwords.
No.
They're fundamental. They're the bedrock of a secure financial system, whether you're talking about the big old traditional banks or the newer fintech players.
Exactly. And forget dry compliance talk. The goal here in this deep dive is to really understand the mechanics, the actual things that protect the financial world we all use every day. We've looked at a whole range of reports on payment threats, financial crime tactics, the rules trying to stop money laundering, how neobanks are popping up, even how tech like blockchain fits in.
Yeah, going from all those different angles gives us a pretty rounded picture, I think. We see the challenges, but also the solutions people are trying out in this, really vital area.
So our mission today is basically to equip you, the listener, with a solid grasp of what KYC and due diligence actually are, why they matter so much, how they're done.
Who makes the rules?
Yeah, who makes the rules, what tools are involved, and importantly, what happens when it all goes wrong.
We'll look at some real cases, too, where things haven't worked out, the struggles institutions face, how things could maybe get better, and even, how you might build a career in this field. It's a growing area.
Think of it as your shortcut to getting up to speed on a really key part of modern finance. Okay, so I kick us off. What are KYC and due diligence in simple terms?
Okay, so KYC, at its core, is the process financial places use to check you are who you say you are. Like when you open a bank account or sign up for a financial app, all those steps they take to confirm your identity. That's KYC. Due diligence is a bit broader. It's not just confirming who you are, but also assessing and managing the risks tied to you as a customer and your relationship with them. It's about understanding, what kind of transactions you might be doing, the potential risks involved.
Got it. So if KYC is the who, due diligence is more about the what you might do and the risk level. And these are tied into AML and CFT, right?
Exactly, precisely. KYC and due diligence, they're the absolute cornerstones of anti-money laundering. That's AML and counter-terrorist financing, CFT.
Right.
By knowing their customers and understanding the risks, institutions can spot and stop illegal money getting into the system much more effectively. Money that could be used for, all sorts of bad things.
Makes sense. But why are they so vital? I mean, in the real world, what's the impact?
Well, their biggest role is being that first line of defense against a whole load of financial crime. Not just money laundering and terrorist financing, but also, everyday fraud. Our sources, like that Pakistan valuation report from 2019, really hammer this home.
And it's not just about stopping those specific crimes, is it? It has wider ripple effects.
Oh, absolutely. As lots of our sources point out, money laundering is basically the fuel for so many other serious crimes. We're talking drug trafficking, human trafficking, illegal arms deals, and of course, funding terrorism.
Wow.
So if you can disrupt the money laundering effectively through good KYC and due diligence, you can actually make a real dent in tackling those other awful activities too.
Okay, crucial question then. What happens to banks or fintechs if they don't get this right, if their KYC and due diligence are weak?
The consequences can be really severe. The UK government guidance on AML-CFT lays it out pretty clearly. Failing here can lead to massive financial penalties. We're talking huge regulatory settlements, big fines.
Right, money talks.
It certainly does. But it's not just the money. Institutions can suffer serious damage to their reputation, face things like formal warnings, restrictions on their managers, even having conditions slapped on their license to operate.
So the stakes are definitely high. Okay, let's get practical. How is this stuff actually done day to day in a traditional bank versus, say, a newer fintech company?
Well, the first step in KYC is usually collecting and then verifying your identity info. So getting copies of things like your passport or ID card, like that Pakistan report mentioned.
The standard stuff.
Yeah, and then checking that info against reliable data sources to make sure it's legit. Now, a really key idea here is the risk-based approach. Pretty much everyone uses this now, banks and fintechs alike.
Risk-based approach.
Yeah.
Okay, what does that mean exactly? Is it like some customers are riskier than others?
Basically, yes. Think of it this way. Not every customer or transaction carries the same level of risk, right? So the risk-based approach And you see this in guidelines from places like Guernsey's Financial Services Commission.
Yeah.
And that Pakistan report, again, means you tailor the level of due diligence based on the assessed risk.
Okay.
You look at the customer, where they are, what products they're using, the kind of transactions, even how they're accessing the service online, in person, whatever. Higher risk means deeper checks.
That makes a lot more sense. Not just a blanket check for everyone. So once someone's onboarded, is that it? Due diligence done?
Oh, no, not at all. It's ongoing. Institutions have to continuously monitor customer transactions and their overall profile for anything that looks, well, unusual or suspicious.
Okay.
Modern tech is huge here. Sophisticated systems, which we'll touch on more with RegTech, are constantly crunching data looking for red flags.
Yeah.
And for customers flagged as high risk or maybe politically exposed persons, PEPs, or in certain banking relationships, they have to do enhanced due diligence, EDD. That's even more rigorous checking.
And how does fintech handle this, being so digital?
Yeah, fintechs lean heavily on digital onboarding. That Pakistan Fintech report talks about this. Technology is right at the center of their identity checks. So things like facial recognition, analyzing digital footprints, using various online data sources to verify you remotely.
Quicker.
Often, yeah. Speed and efficiency are key for them, so tech helps automate a lot of those initial KYC steps.
Okay, so who actually writes the rules for all this? Sounds like a massive web of regulations.
It is, yeah, it's multi-layered. Internationally, a really big player is the Financial Action Task Force, FATF. They set out recommendations, sort of global standards, for fighting money laundering and terrorist financing. Our RegTech source mentions them.
So they set the global standard.
And then countries adopt and implement those standards.
And then individual countries turn those into actual laws.
Exactly. National regulators in each country, like the State Bank of Pakistan, SBP, or the Financial Services Commission in Guernsey, take those FATF guidelines and create their own specific AML-CFT rules that institutions in their patch have to follow.
Right.
The Pakistan Fintech report, the Guernsey rules, they show this. These national bodies issue detailed regulations and guidelines that banks and fintechs operating there are legally required to stick to. That Pakistan MER 2019 confirms this too.
Okay, got the what and the who. Now, the how. What specific tools are banks and fintechs using to actually do the KYC and due diligence?
There's quite a mix, actually.
Yeah.
From, more traditional methods right up to some pretty cutting-edge tech. Traditional ways still involve manually checking physical documents sometimes.
Like showing your passport in a branch.
Yeah, that kind of thing. But there's been a huge shift towards using regulatory technology, or RegTech. Our source on deploying RegTech really dives into this.
RegTech, hearing that term a lot. What kind of tech are we talking about?
Well, think about sophisticated ID verification software. Stuff that can instantly check ID documents and cross-reference the details against loads of global databases. Then you've got transaction monitoring systems.
What do they do?
They use complex algorithms to spot weird patterns in financial activity, things that might suggest money laundering or fraud. Sanctions and PEP screening tools are also vital, making sure they're not dealing with people or companies on international watch lists.
Okay.
And increasingly, we're seeing more advanced tech like machine learning and AI being used. These can chew through massive amounts of data to find really subtle clues or hidden links that might signal financial crime.
What about newer stuff like blockchain? Is that playing a role in KYC?
It definitely has potential. That source on KYC using blockchain looks at this. Because blockchain is decentralized and encrypted, it could offer much more secure ways to store customer data.
How so?
Well, it could potentially automate parts of the verification, cut out middlemen, and allow secure sharing of already verified data between trusted parties on, like, a permission network.
So verify once, use many times sort of thing.
Potentially, yeah. With the customer's permission, of course. It could cut costs and improve accuracy down the line. Imagine verifying your ID once and then securely letting multiple banks you use access that verification.
Interesting. Okay, so with all these rules, processes, and fancy tech, how does this stuff still get breached? It feels like there should be multiple layers of defense.
Yeah, you'd think so, but vulnerabilities still exist. That 2024 Payment Threats Report gives some good examples, especially around payment initiation and authentication. Things like malware.
Viruses and stuff.
Yeah, keyloggers that record what you type, or remote access Trojans, RATs, like one called Vulture, that let criminals actually control your device remotely. They can steal your logins that way.
That's worrying. So even if the bank's secure, if my phone or computer is compromised.
Exactly. And it's not just tech attacks. Social engineering scams are a huge and growing problem. Criminals use really clever manipulation and deception, even bypassing strong customer authentication, SCA, sometimes.
Wow.
They trick people into authorizing fraudulent payments themselves. It's called authorized push payment fraud, or APP fraud, or authorized card scams. They might pretend to be from your bank or the government, get your details, or convince you to transfer money to their accounts.
It's scary how convincing they can be. Are there other ways criminals get around the system?
Shell companies are a big one for money laundering, as one source explains. These are basically fake companies, just on paper, no real business. They exist purely to hide who really owns the money, making it super hard to trace illicit funds and dodge AML rules.
Like nesting dolls of ownership.
Kind of, yeah. And in the crypto world, criminals use techniques like bouncing digital currencies through loads of different addresses and wallets called hops to muddy the waters and hide where the money originally came from. The AIR report on crypto laundering details this. It's like trying to follow smoke.
So when these breaches happen, or institutions just fail on KYC and due diligence,
Right.
Are there actual penalties, real consequences?
Oh, absolutely. Loads of cases where regulators have hit institutions with big fines. Like the UK Gambling Commission, our government source mentions this. They've imposed massive penalties for AML failures. Over £53 million just in the 2022-23 financial year.
£53 million. Wow. What does that signal?
It really shows how seriously regulators take this stuff and the massive financial hit companies can face if they mess up. Then you have Cincian in the U.S. designating Bitslotto as a primary money laundering concern because it was helping Russian ransomware gangs in darknet markets.
So international action, too.
Definitely. It shows regulators coordinating across borders against entities enabling crime.
What about other places? You mentioned Pakistan earlier.
Yeah, that 2019 report on Pakistan noted that while many banks there kind of understood the risks, they often struggled to really identify the ultimate beneficial owners of accounts. And they weren't always consistent in reporting suspicious transactions linked to terrorist financing. The report also mentioned specific penalties against microfinance banks there for KYC and customer due diligence breaches, totaling over 4.6 million rupees between 2015 and 2018. So yeah, these problems and penalties pop up globally.
So failing on KYC isn't just theoretical risk. It leads to real fines and regulatory action all over the world. Now, doing this effectively sounds incredibly difficult in practice. What are the main struggles banks and fintechs face every day?
One of the biggest, especially for those fast-moving fintechs, is balancing tight security with a smooth customer experience.
Yeah, you don't want signing up to take forever.
Exactly. In that competitive fintech world, if your KYC process is too clunky or slow, customers will just go elsewhere. Another major headache is figuring out who the real beneficial owner is, especially with complex company structures or shell companies involved. Both the Pakistan report and the shell company source highlighted this.
I can imagine trying to untangle a web of companies across different countries must be incredibly tough.
It really can be. Plus, the criminals are always changing tactics, right? So institutions have to constantly update their KYC processes just to keep up. It's a moving target.
Like cat and mouse.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And those automated systems we talked about, they're powerful, but they can also flag lots of legitimate transactions by mistake, false positives. That means compliance teams spend ages manually reviewing things that are actually fine.
Wasted effort.
Yeah. And finally, as that Pakistan report noted, sometimes there's just an inconsistent level of understanding about the risks and requirements, both within different institutions and even between regulators sometimes.
It really does sound like a constant battle. So, looking forward, how can KYC and due diligence actually be improved? What are the potential fixes?
Well, several things look promising. Really leaning into that risk-based approach, making it dynamic and continuously assessed, like the Guernsey Commission suggests, that's key.
So not just a one-off check.
Right. And further development and smarter use of RegTech, especially AI and machine learning, holds huge potential for better detection and prevention. Our RegTech source really pushes this. These tools can analyze data faster and spot patterns humans might miss.
So better tech is a big part of it. What else?
More information sharing and collaboration between banks, between fintechs, and between them and the regulators. A more joined-up approach could really help track illicit money flows.
Makes sense.
Blockchain, like we mentioned, could make KYC more secure and efficient, maybe cut down on duplicated effort. And it's crucial that the regulations themselves keep evolving to match the pace of tech innovation and criminal tactics.
So the rules need to keep up.
Definitely. And for the newer players, the neobanks and fintechs,
Yeah.
building that strong compliance culture and baking security in from day one is absolutely vital. One of our fintech sources stressed that.
It sounds like it needs everyone pulling together: tech, regulators, and the institutions themselves. Okay, final area. For listeners who find this field kind of intriguing, how could someone actually start a career in KYC or due diligence?
It's actually a really growing area. Compliance and risk management roles are super important now in both traditional finance and fintech, as one of our sources on fintech careers points out.
What kind of skills do you need?
Well, strong analytical skills are key. Being able to understand complex regulations is important too, and good problem-solving abilities. You could look for jobs in the compliance departments of banks or fintech firms, or work for the reg tech companies building the tools, or even work for the regulators themselves.
So it's not just for finance grads.
Not necessarily. I mean, a background in finance, law, or maybe criminology helps, sure. But with the tech side growing, skills in data science, cybersecurity, even things like behavioral analysis are becoming really valuable.
And honestly, because regulators are getting stricter and financial crimes getting more sophisticated, the demand for skilled people in KYC and due diligence is just going up and up. It could be a really rewarding career path if you have the right skills and interest.
This has been really fascinating, a proper deep dive into this essential world of due diligence and KYC. So just to quickly recap, KYC is about checking identity.
Verifying the who.
Right. And due diligence is broader, understanding and managing the risks associated with that who.
The what and the how risky.
Exactly. And these are absolutely critical for stopping financial crime like money laundering and terrorist financing. Get it wrong. And institutions face massive fines and reputational hits.
Yep. We also talked about the risk-based approach, how international bodies like FATF and national regulators set the rules, all the tools being used from manual checks to AI and potentially blockchain.
And how criminals still try to break through using malware, trickery, shell companies, crypto mixing. Right. And we saw real examples of big fines, like with the UK Gambling Commission and Bitslotto, and the challenges faced in places like Pakistan. We discussed the struggles, like balancing security and user experience, and how things might improve with better tech, collaboration, and adaptive rules. And of course, the career opportunities.
Okay, so as we wrap up, here's something to think about. In this increasingly digital, connected, global financial system, what does the future of financial security look like? Maybe consider your own awareness, your own vigilance when you interact financially online. This ongoing fight against financial crime, it really feels like a shared responsibility. It needs constant learning and adapting from everyone, institutions, regulators, and, well, us as individuals, too. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.